This is my favourite photograph of Jimmy Forsyth. It's a completely unique photograph because nobody else has ever seen him looking like this, looking so smart, with so many expensive local history books in the background. Jimmy had come to Newcastle in 1943 when he'd been asked to come for several weeks to help out with a factory near Newcastle in Prudhoe, and he'd only been a few days in the factory when a metal splinter flew up from the lathe and hit him in the eye. So from then on, he only had one eye. That was in 1943. And he found that he had to find some digs, and he found the digs on Scotswood Road itself, and from then on, that's where he lived more or less, in several different places. But I better go back to the photograph that's being shown. It could be that Jimmy was paid compensation for the loss of the eye, and he had quite a lot of money. And he spent all this money on these sort of local history books. Now, at the same time, he was also using public libraries. And it was in a public library that I met him in the late 50s. It was the fact that he was a Welshman on Geordie land. He looked at it as a foreign country. He wanted to find out about it. But the time came when he suddenly realised he had no money left to feed himself. So he had to sell them back again. And he was using the libraries more and more. Now, at first, Jimmy didn't take photographs of the Scotswood Road area, but he took photographs of the interesting parts of Newcastle. When people looked at these sort of photographs, who are professionals, they said, "Isn't it wonderful how he's got the light of the snow and the comparative shots?" And Jimmy would just say, he says, "All I did was click the camera, actually," because he knew nothing about the technique of photography. So there is Elsick Park, and Jimmy used to come up to this library. That is if you look at the upstairs windows, that is where the children's library was that I used at the age of 12, and the library itself is where I was working in the 1950s. So Jimmy came up to the library from Scotswood Road to borrow books, and this is how it would look in the 1950s when Jimmy would take a family called the Beveridge family up from Scotswood Road to show them the park and show them his route up to the library. The father of the family is the one who would be taking the photograph, and he got to know them because he was working with the father one day in a building site, and the foreman asked Jimmy to do something, and Jimmy refused. So as a result of that, Jimmy got the sack. So the father said to Jimmy, "Well, I'll tell you what, I'll take you and give you, we'll go to a pub and have a drink." Jimmy says, "Well," he says, "I would much further go to your house and have something to eat." So there's the father, you see, who took the photography. And this is in Gloucester Street. And there's the youngest one. Now, when this was showing on television, this photograph, one of the ladies says, "That's not his bike, he never had a bike, he's just posing the lad." This is the family as they grew up. So this is probably taking at Easter, I would imagine. He attached himself to the family. There's Maureen on the left there. She's the one with a smile, so he gets a lot of her photographs of her. This photograph isn't particularly good. It's taken on a party on New Year's Eve, and he's obviously makes himself at home with the family. Now this is the family as Jimmy. There's Maureen with her smile in the background. There they would be sitting, and Jimmy would just be pop in any time, take the photograph. And Jimmy says, "Where's the youngest one then?" And he said, "There's the youngest one. He couldn't reach the table, you see." But that gives an idea in the background of how you heated those houses. Every room had a fireplace. So there's the youngest one. Anyway, now Maureen, Jimmy used to take it around. This was given the title of the new overcoat. So the trouble is, the father during the winter months couldn't get a job because he was taking off the outdoor shops. So they had to go into the local dealers to get a second-hand coat for the poor lass. But she could be very much smarter than that when he was in money, you see, the father. That's taken on Jimmy's studio in Gloucester Street. Took quite a lot of shots on that particular corner. And there's Maureen on the left, looking very smart. And there she is again. And there's a pub in the background called the Gloucester, which is very near where they lived. Now, this is the next thing that was happening was they were pulling down the houses round Gloucester Street. That's the old Co-op store. Everything happened at the Co-op store. You had your 21st birthdays there, you had parties there, you have wedding receptions. It was not only a store, it was a sort of a hall, that sort of thing. And there's the chip shop on the corner there. Very important building, chip shop. But that's what it looked like looking out of the window. And these are the workmen moving in, clearing the houses out, ready. So this just obviously they had to be rehoused before this, and they were moved out towards the Delaware Road area in Bedwell. And there they are, and the new houses in Bedwell. So Jimmy goes out with these Easter eggs, you see, to give them presents then. And Maureen is now growing up, isn't she? Now, one of these two boys later was part owner of a club, of a pub on Scotsford Road called the Hydraulic. And he came to me and he said, I want to order some of Jimmy's photographs to put on display in the Hydraulic. So I was able to meet him then, and I was able to provide him with the prints. Now that's Maureen as she would have been about 6 or 7 years ago, when they were hunting out where she was more or less living in the same area round Delaware Road. Now there's another of the people in the girl in the neighbourhood, and she liked playing with a hula hoop. So one day she got a good idea. She went and started doing it outside the Gloucester, and when they came out and they saw her doing that, she earned quite a lot of money. And this particular photograph has actually been in China, because the side gallery sent some of his photographs on display, and that was the one that was very popular in China. And later, that's the same person as she would have been when they were doing a television program in this country, and she was working in a cake shop, so they tracked down the people. So it's just a variety of photographs of the kids in the neighbourhood and what it was like off Scotswood Road. All those houses are going to be pulled down. At one stage, around about 1901, half of the population of Newcastle lived in Elsick and Westcott. There was such a big concentration that had been built up living in these sort of houses clustered around the factory in the Scotswood Road. This little boy's mother wanted a photograph of him, and this little girl said, "I want to have my photograph taken." And somebody says, "Well, put your arm around his neck," and that's what she did. That was the reaction to that request. So you find that Jimmy just took people as they were. And of course these are the characters that be in the neighbourhood and having the sharp knives. There's a lot of butchers down there. Of course there was still a lot of people who had coal in their rooms in those days, and this is the bloke who provided the coal down just below Scotswood Road. And Jimmy, of course, liked climbing, and when they started pulling down the houses, he went up the ladder, thought he'd get a new view of the old Elsick in the background. This was in a street. This had been a church hall at one time for St. Stephen's, and that was. Those are the people who were on top taking off the tiles, and he used one of the ladders to get on top. So one of the problems with Jimmy's photographs was he took an awful lot of houses being pulled down, and it didn't add up to mean anything really, because houses are being pulled down. But there's a bit more action in this one, you see. And there were still people living in the neighbourhood, so they complained about the amount of dust. So the builders managed to get some of the staff to sweep up some of the dust. I don't know. This was a part of Scotswood Road that was very much used, because there's a fire station and a police station on the right, and there's also the baths, and of course nobody had baths in the houses, so they had to come. They actually had baths and wash houses. So this is the old Trellis Park, and so these are there's the same site when they started building flats in the park. So Jimmy was there to take the original park, and he was there to see the flats being built.